The current mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, is claiming to have balanced the city's budget. But when you take a deeper dive look into it, that doesn't seem to be the real truth. I'm Tommy Stone, and today in the Tommy Stone Show, we're going to be going over the first socialist lie that Zohran Mamdani has been spewing to the public, and that's that he's balanced his budget effectively. And the real truth of it comes from the fact that he did not balance his budget, and I'm going to show you why. It starts with pension reform. A big chunk of what Zohran Mamdani is claiming in this balanced budget is that he was able to balance out their pension and able to find a way to essentially shorten and minimize the amount of payments that the city has to make towards their pension obligations to the workers of the city. But in reality, all he did was make the payments that he owes now. He extended them to 2032 and 2037. Pretty much what he did, imagine you have a payment on your house that's due, you owe $100,000 in the next year. You go to the bank, in this case, you're Zohran. Zohran went to the pension and he decided that, hey, this $100,000 that I owe in the next year, let's make it owed over the next 18 months instead of just 12 months. So the payment that I owe every single month is a little bit smaller. That's pretty much what he did. And that little reduction in payment that you have to make every single month, he's claiming that as the savings and the balancing of the budget. So sure, in the short term, yeah, he made the pension reduction and the pension payments look a little bit better. But in reality, for the next mayor and for the next few years after his current term, that pension obligation is still there, and the city is going to have to find a way to pay that. He did not fix any sort of structure in the system. He just literally delayed it for the next mayor to worry about. It's not his problem. That's pretty much what he said, because there's no way he lasts more than a term or two in New York. It's going to all go back and bite him in his face, and this is the big reason why, because his taxes on the billionaires, if you're an ambulance rider in New York City, according to Zohran Mamdani, you're a billionaire who needs to be taxed. Because what he did is he has now expanded the fees on ambulances, and not only just on ambulances, but if you use EMS services and you actually don't get in the ambulance, then you are also now being charged additional fees. This is a new fee in order to help fund the budget deficit crisis. That's a great billionaire tax. Thank you so much, Zohran. On top of that, he's installing a ton more speed cameras, red light cameras, up to $15 million more in revenues expected from these speed light cameras and whatnot that he's installing. That is a classic middle class tax that politicians love to do because it is a quiet middle class tax. Again, billionaires aren't paying the mass percentage of what people are paying in parking tickets and in red light camera tickets and in speeding tickets. Again, that is a middle class tax. When you expand that type of enforcement and those type of fines, it isn't on the billionaires, it's on the middle class people. And on top of that, as we already know, Zohran loves to make it more expensive to essentially do anything related to driving. So EV drivers have already had, Uber drivers and Lyft drivers already had a mandate by 2030, 100% of their fleet has to be in some sort of way emission-free and emission-friendly. And right now, Zohran wants to make it a lot more expensive to charge your electric car. So there's a lot of things going on, but these are all middle-class taxes. Again, the billionaires aren't the ones who are being the Uber drivers. They aren't the ones that are paying the parking tickets and the speeding tickets. That is a middle class tax. And to make it even worse, Zohran had a $4 billion budget deficit that the state of New York had to bail him out on. Zohran got a $4 billion investment from the state, but in reality, this investment was just to stop him from having to raise property taxes on normal people a ton or start cutting a ton of social services in the city. Now, the only bright spot that Zohran has been able to accomplish on taxing billionaires is being able to get this tax out where if you have a second home in New York City that is valued over $5 million, there's now going to be an additional tax levied on you. And this additional tax is supposed to be raising over $500 million for the city. So this is a huge win, except when you look at it from a scale issue, this is only about 4% of the entire budget deficit problem. So again, while it is a win, $500 million from billionaires that they weren't necessarily going to spend on the city in the first place is now being given to the city. I don't like when cities and governments are the ones receiving this money. I wish we found a way and Zohran found a way for them to spend this $500 million on investing in the city rather than just giving it to the government to essentially waste, because as we all know, the more money you give government, the more money they tax from us. They're just wasting it. You can look at every single education system, every single federal education system or state education system, even though we've been pumping money into these state systems. Again, even the New York education system is the best example. They spend spend over $30,000 per student every single year, yet they have some of the worst scores in the entire nation. And the reason why is because the government can't fail. No matter how terrible the results of the government are that they release, again, the test scores of the kids, no matter how terrible these test scores are, at the end of the day, the government will continue getting their tax money and the education system will continue getting their payments. And that is why we need to have private competition being brought back to our cities. And that's why I hate socialism, because socialism destroys all forms of free market, all forms of competition, because at the end of the day, competition is what makes us better, and that's what furthers our education systems, that's what furthers our industries, our technologies. Nobody gets further by having no incentive when they can never fail. Again, a school system can never fail. It will always be funded. If somebody hates the education system in Chicago, well, either you stay in CPS or you got to pay $30,000 yourself in order to get an education in Chicago. So that is just absolutely ridiculous. It is a complete flaw in the system, and we need to abolish these type of education systems. I think Doge had the right idea, getting rid of the Department of Education, but then with that money that they saved, getting rid of it, they did absolutely nothing with it. So it's a long way to go on fixing this on a national issue, but socialism is not the answer. And New York City and Zohran Mamdani are proving that perfectly, because at the end of the day, you can't just keep squeezing billionaires for every dime they had, because they're either just going to leave their state or they're going to have no more money to tax. That is the big issue with billionaires. A lot of their money isn't liquid. It isn't in taxable income. It is in ways that you can't tax. So at a certain point, you just simply cannot tax them anymore. And that is the issue that Zohran Mamdani has been running into, because he has not been able to get across the board most of his taxes that he wanted done. Again, he did have that second home tax. That was the one big win that he's really had. Outside of that, again, it's been mainly middle class taxes. If you consider billionaires people who use ambulances and people who drive on the street, then sure, Zohran is taxing the billionaires to fund the budget deficit. But at the end of the day, again, that is why socialism will never work, because unless you fix the supply side of economics, unless you find a way to get real investment into your city, real business being done, and real spending being done, you will never have a productive economy. And you need a productive economy in order for people to live accordingly. And in order for you to even have any sort of welfare, in order for you to have any sort of equality, you need to have productivity first. And socialism destroys productivity because there's no competition. There is no failure. Again, the state is subsidizing everything in socialism. That's what Zohran Mamdani wants with these state-run grocery stores. He wants state-run grocery stores to be able to set the prices for groceries, essentially, where people who are running their grocery store privately, if they cannot compete with those prices, well, then they go out of business. And that's the issue, is when you have a subsidized state store like that, again, thank God that's never going to pass. He only wanted to do 5 of them to begin with, and that's never going to pass. But the issue is the premise of it. If he was able to get these state-run grocery stores in place, all of a sudden all the grocery stores around those stores would go out of business, and the state would have that business, and all of a sudden you have people relying on the state for their food, and that's when you have shortages, and that's when you have failures, because the state simply cannot react to what the market needs in real time as accurately and as perfectly as free markets can. Because again, the government is a system of people. It is layers and layers of bureaucracies, and people have to vote on the decision to go across the board and be completely equal for everybody. And by the time these votes and these decisions happen, the market has already reacted, and the change needed to be done a month ago, and things are getting worse. That's always what happens. That's why Venezuela had inflation of over 60,000%. That's why we see in every single socialist society like the USSR and China, they had huge famines, because you simply cannot react quick enough to what the market needs in a centralized form of planning and essentially decisions for the economy. The economy is made up of literally billions of decisions every single day, from little small decentralized entrepreneurs to the mom and pop stores to just the AMC theater handing out popcorn. And these are all economic decisions that are impacting how pricing is on your popcorn, how pricing is again on your home prices. Every single decision every single day from these decentralized people make up how we price things in our economy. And with a state-run grocery store where they're setting the prices, that is not a natural market price. And from there, you can't have natural competition, and that's where everything starts to break down. And that's what we're fighting here on the Tommy Stone Show. We're trying to fight for natural market competition, natural free markets, where me and you can rise up, start our own grocery stores, and find out how to charge the lowest price for groceries in a natural way, and not just having the state subsidizing groceries for the lowest price, where me and you can't even compete with that no matter how hard we work, because that, again, that's destroying all profit incentives. If you have the state handing out food for the lowest price. Again, giving out people their rations for the lowest price if they just work and give up. Again, that's what socialism is you work for your rations, is you work. No longer are you getting paid a salary. You're getting paid by the government in your food and your housing. You go to your job for the things given to you by the government. You lose the ability to make your own money. You lose the ability to have private property. And again, that's where everything collapses, because if me and you cannot have private property, if me and you cannot work to better ourselves, and if we do not see the fruits of our labor and private property, that's where everything collapses, because there is no incentive then to work hard to better the system and better the people around us. And that's what we're seeing with socialism. Again, Zohran Mamdani needed a $4 billion bailout from the state already, because socialism does not create more innovation. All it does is create lazy people looking for a handout, looking for equality, and just looking for, again, people like Zohran Mamdani to give them their food, their housing, and their jobs. When in the real world, that is not how that works. We need to reward hard work and the people who want to go up above and beyond and fix our system. Again, capitalists like Jeff Bezos, as much as people are getting driven nuts by him, he created a system where me and you, again, no matter how hard you want to use it, if you don't want to use Amazon, you don't have to use it, but the convenience it creates in our lives is undeniable, and that's why he's as rich as he is. And everybody in America has the same opportunity to create something like that and better the system, not only for themselves, but for every single American, just like Jeff Bezos did. But under socialism, you do not. The state controls everything. You have no ability to rise up, and we're going to see it collapse before we know it in New York City. Again, maybe this is for the best that we got a socialist experiment going on in America, just to crush it once and for all, and for young Americans to know socialism is not the way. It is only the free market way. I just want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. This has been a really, really fun episode, deep diving into Zohran Mamdani and the failure of socialism. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you drop me a subscribe. I really, really, really appreciate when you guys subscribe to the channel. It really helps me. Also, make sure to go look at my other social medias. It's the same handle at The Tommy Stone Show on pretty much any platform you can imagine. But again, thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. Comment down below what you think, if you agree or disagree, or any future videos you want to see happening on the channel. Just make sure to drop it in the comments below. But again, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.